you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life is Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Comu. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites within communities throughout the state of Massachusetts. Currently, the communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. His tours spotlight the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the All Souls Catholic Church, located in Springfield, Massachusetts. So, where is this church?
This church is at 449 Springfield Street in that community, and it's been there for a very long time. So what we're going to talk about today is that very early history of the church, and we'll talk about the rectory and the school, as usual, and the other features that are important around this area. Like the name All Souls refers to all the Catholics and all the religions. All right, now this was a place that was built to be a church right away, but it was replaced. So what you're looking at is not the original. Now the rectory is going to be right along the side. It's a little younger than the church, and then the school right alongside the other side of the church. So they're all located together on this Plainfield Street.
And what is the early history of this church?
The first chapel that would be called the All Saints Church was put in at this location in 1909. So they've had a presence here, and they have their origin from that year. It's 115 years ago. Now that chapel was a small wooden chapel, and 3 years later it would be replaced, taken down, and the modern building that you see in place now was put up. The official architect for the Springfield Catholic Diocese was a man named John Donahue, and he had many projects that he did around Springfield, also some in Northampton, also some in Boston. He was very prolific, and Springfield was his base though for a long time. He had a firm here. He was born here and raised here. And if you look at the style, most of his style is distinguishable, because if you look at the front facade of any church he did, he usually used two different kinds of colored brick. Right, the usual ruddy red color of brick, but then he'd use a very light color also. And he would juxtapose those light colors with a lot of the ruddy colors. And thus, in a very symmetric way. So thus, he has a very distinguishable style. If you'll see his churches, they're very easy to distinguish, including any school that he did, a rectory. He did the same style with that colored brick interspersed between the other ones. For instance, he did the St. John the Baptist Church in Northampton, and that is gorgeous, using white brick maybe every fifth time, along with the ruddy brick color as usual. And they're so well done that you'll see it right away. Another distinguishing factor of his is that he used a high degree of symmetry on the front facade for the whole effect, not only for the brick. So typically the towers on both sides, and typically they wouldn't have a big steeple, and so he had symmetric towers, symmetric doors, and symmetric windows, and usually use a small rose window. He used it over and over again. Every church is different, but he still has the same similarities in his basic designs.
And really quick, before we continue with our interview, just to fill our listeners in, for more information or to sign up for any various tours, check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there you can find videos and podcasts of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout as well. And for private tours and other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, @yahoo.com. and his tours make for fun, educational, outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview. Tell us about the rectory.
The rectory is from 1929, thus it was built after the church was there. And so the pastor would use a nearby home, and so this is actually the second rectory. But it was built for this church from scratch. It's not even 100 years old. It was built in what's called a neo-colonial style. It has a front colonnade, and it's also very symmetric and very close to the church itself. And it's still there, and it's still used just by the pastor. It's just like church is also. So I like the overall effect in the landscape. It's very flat, but everything seems to be quite clean there.
And what school is nearby?
All right, the school nearby is the former Catholic school. The convent used to be behind it. It is from approximately the time of the church, that is from 1909, 1912 era, and it lasted for maybe half a century of the Catholic school. Then it was taken over to be a public school, and now I don't know what they're doing. It's called the Brightwood School nowadays, but I'm not sure what they do inside there. It must be a specialized school. And so thus you had a complete campus of the old Saints Catholic school, and usually most Catholic schools are that way because they want their students to be educated outside of public schools. You don't often find that with the Protestant church itself. So overall, this is a beautiful campus, and of course go visit it, and also visit my webpage devoted to this church. And when I find more history about it, I'll put it right in there. Thank you.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can check out a large selection of our other podcasts on his website, as well as on SoundCloud.com. And be sure to stay up to date with new podcasts and videos posted daily. Thank you, and hope you join us again.